HGUC Gundam Delta Kai. Hey, what's up again, everybody? It's Robert184, 2Rs2Bs, Gundam.tk, and the high-grade Universal Century Gundam Delta Kai is all complete here. You've seen everything from the unbox to the parts to the MS and the transformation, and now it's time. I've got some thoughts on the good and bad about this kit so that you can make your own call whether this is something that you want to add one or maybe even two of to your shelf. He'll stay transformed here for the negatives, even though that's not necessarily an indictment. But first of all, you're going to be paying 2,600 yen for this when you buy it, and you can see that that's sort of going to be worth it because you're just going to have a lot of plastic, but a lot of them are going to be repeats. So if you've already built the Delta Plus, you're going to be getting 5 plates from that. You're also going to be wasting a lot of plastic from that. And so if you love the Delta Plus and some of the things that it brought to the table here in the HGUC, then you got to wonder about how this one would do here in Master Grade. But you'd love or hate the same things about that here, including the fact that, let's just get right to it, that it is a huge parts former. I mean, you've got the whole upper body here is just going to be replaced by a big chunky block of plastic, even though you're also going to be losing the same and wasting the same one from the Delta Plus. The shoulders, they're even going to be faked. You'd think that they could have got those on underneath, but it's so tightly designed under there that you're going to have fake heels, fake shoulders, and some other removed parts there. But most importantly, you don't have to worry about the head of the Gundam being seen by, let's say, Shin's sister as a Gundam whooshes overhead, because it's just not going to happen there, and all this stuff is just going to get bagged up, and you just don't want to lose it along the way. Another problem when you're putting it together, and it's always a shame when they do this, you're going to be getting the Delta Plus plates, which means you can be getting an extra beam saber and an extra beam rifle here, so it's the kind of thing that you just want to read the X's a little bit carefully and don't just go ahead and throw out the actual parts. Now, when he's put together, you're going to get some pros and cons, starting with the fact that you're going to have some thrusters on the back, and they're not going to have the back of the legs. Let's go bottom to top, and they're not going to work out all that well. The knees are going to be funky, they're not going to really move around, and it's going to expose some strange gray parts when you bend them down. And the fact that they don't move up and down, unlike things that we've seen on things like the S Gundam, is just going to definitely set them apart. The hips are a big issue, though, also because they are going to be on old school ball joints. Sort of interesting the way that you actually just detach them by sliding them downwards for the transformation, and you're not actually going to pop the hips off, which means that you're still going to have them in here, but we've gotten used to double O-like kits where you're able to move them all over the place and easily swap the legs and limbs on and off, even if you wanted to do it between Gundams. Not really going to happen here unless you're willing to risk some weak polycaps over time. Also, the side skirts, well, the front skirts, first of all, they're going to move up and down ever so slightly, but they're going to cover up some of the yellow behind them. Just sort of an interesting design choice, not necessarily a bad one. But the side skirts are going to be problematic because they are just large, they are in the way. They're also not going to get out of the way if you wanted to do anything too fancy with them. And of course, they're going to have that big bogeyman, which you know is sneaking up towards the end of the negatives all over the place. Moving up to the chest I've actually got to say is all really, really cool, except for the shoulders. We've also gotten used to shoulders that are going to be moving up and down and in and out, and with this one, you're just going to have old school block polycaps on the inside, so you're not going to be able to do anything with that. And speaking of which, on the back, you're going to have the wings here, which are going to have individual parts that slide in and out, but they're not going to do any movement back here. The funnels will, but the actual wings won't, which is a little bit disappointing, and yes, there's some little yellow ones that are worth mentioning also. The shoulders are going to be problematic here, even if they are in a Ziploc. Well, not really, but I mean, when they're actually on the Gundam, these seem to fall out very, very easily. The hole here just seems like it's recessed a little bit too much, which means the shoulder isn't going to fit in there all that securely. These parts would drop off at the drop of a hat, especially if you try to rotate it around. Not to mention the fact that if you do try to rotate it around, they're going to bang into all of that mumbo-jumbo that's going to be attached onto the back. And speaking of the back, you're going to have the same issues. You've got the parts that are attached on for the wings. They are going to hold the C funnels on well, or the proto funnels, but they're not going to move around and they're not going to do anything fancy. But let's get into the second biggest complaint for this one, which is, I've got to say that the weapons are a little bit disappointing. Beam sabers here, this is the wrong handle. You could have the larger ones in there, but the actual blade itself just comes across as being very small, especially when you compare it to the length of all the other weapons that you've got here. And when we're talking about the high mega cannon, which should be so cool, it's going to be attached onto the shield down here. It's going to look pretty good underneath as if you've got that yellow part there when it's transformed into Wave Rider mode. But it's the kind of thing where it's a big block of plastic. They're going to be giving you these custom stands. And how good would it be if you could actually take the cannon off, put that up on an action base, have that flying around as if it was on a wire or just being controlled by somebody's mind, or even just use these action bases. It just seems like an opportunity lost that you've got a weapon on a big shield, it is detachable, and then where are you supposed to attach it in lieu of where it's already going to be positioned? It just seems like there's no point in even detaching it. The big rifle itself just comes across as being very, very dull. You've got so much white and so much color and so much plastic everywhere else. This one's just going to be thin. It's also going to bang into the elbows and the shoulders when we do it, which you've seen on a million different things, including bazookas. This one's even more problematic. But ultimately, what is the biggest flaw for this kit? Well, when you build up the chest, it's going to look fantastic because of the number of colors here in close proximity. You're only going to have the yellow ones here provided, or for the yellow circles. That's going to be done up in seals. But when you look at this thing probably took an hour just to decal them up here. And I mean, you're going to be putting purple parts all over the place. You've got 4, 5, 6 parts over here. They're also going to be wrapped around here on 3 different sides. And you know that they're not going to stay on. Some of the lengths are too long, some of them are too short. So you're going to have to cut and trim, and you may have to add a little bit of paint. This kit is screaming, if you want to do it right, to just take these plastic parts, tape them off, get the right purple mixed up, and then actually just paint him up. And I think that you could really bring him to life, because I think as soon as you open the box and you see something like that, thankfully most of them are going to be hidden in the back. However, when you do take a look at them and you're always going to be reattaching, definitely going to go in heavily in the negative column. And finally, you've got a great shield and a great idea, and the execution is going to result in the slow victory of gravity over the fact that even though it's actually designed to be pretty light, there's really not all that many poses that he's going to be able to keep, even if you cheat and prop it up with the knee. So is it all bad? Definitely no, and I don't do this very often, but I'm going to keep them transformed here for some of the positives, because I think that this transformation of the Wave Rider is absolutely incredible in design and execution, if you can get past the fact that it's a part former. If you hate parts formers on principle, well, then you won't like this one. But I think in terms of parts former, I'm incredibly impressed with the way they did this, and when you compare it to some of the other ones, like the flimsy Real Grade Zeta and things like that, you've got to wonder if a rethink could be in order. The chest section is going to be great. It's got tons of colors attached into it when you take all the limbs on and off and you put it back on. The shield really comes into its own when it's attached on here. The big mega cannon underneath is a lot of fun. The funnels are great in MS mode, and I think they're going to be great up here. And if you've got it on an age 3 base here, you could actually take a funnel off. Would be even fun to buy an extra set, as they're going to be doing with the new version KA. And it would be fun to take some extra funnels and put them up there, or at least one of them there. But in terms of the other transformation, the arms are going to fit in there very, very well. And though I complain that they've got fake shoulders, the new ones do work perfectly. They are sized to within half of, like a portion of a millimeter. Everything's going to fit in there incredibly well. The legs here, the way you bend them up, the feet are going to look better when you put them all in there together. And the way that they can slide around these wings parts here, and the fact that these wing parts are going to have this, and this sliding out there, and the purple trim, which is sort of not going to be seen because it's going to be in the back of the Gundam. If you can get past the fact that it's supposed to be done in stickers, if you're not going to take the time to paint them up, here you can see in full Macross glory that you're just going to have all sorts of purple trim there in all the right places, and this kit has definitely come to life, and I'm actually a huge fan of the Wave Rider mode here, and you wonder if it's almost enough to get 2. Finally, back in MS mode, though, there are a lot of positives, starting with just the ultimate one of importance. He's a lot of fun to put together, and that's going to be helped by the fact that he's got such an interesting color scheme. Not necessarily going to help make the build better, but you're going to be very intrigued, especially building up the shoulders and the chest there, just to see where all this multitude of colors, not in variety, but in terms of the actual number of plastic pieces and the way they all attach together there, and the way the light gray offsets there, it just seems like a lot of fun. And putting the weapons together, it is interesting to build up all of the wings, all of the side skirts. These things by themselves are quite intriguing to put together there. The funnels, simple though they are just going to be a blast. Beam rifle, yeah, that's not going to be so exciting, but the shield itself, again, outside of the fact that it's just a big block of white plastic, it's intriguing the way you're going to put it together, and you really want to see it in use. So I think you're going to have a sense of anticipation the whole time you're putting it together. But for all the flaws of the weapons, they're ultimately going to be a lot of fun to use, and that's going to come in no small part to the fact that you're just going to have a big massive shield there with a cool hyper mega super mega cannon underneath. The beam rifle, yeah, not exciting, but the C funnels are great, as they're just going to add even more purple to an already great color scheme there. And they're going to give you the ability, I think the funnels work great when the transformation, great on the MS, and they're going to give you these and ideas with other ways to use an action base too, to get them up all over the place, and the fact that they've got the standard holes on there, and they are going to move around there. He's just going to come across as a lot of fun, at least in the idea. So I think ultimately, when you're deciding whether you want to buy this guy, you're going to have to add up both the idea of this MS design and the actual execution in terms of an HGUC model. But when you combine the fact that he's got solid knees, a good waist section, a very fun to put together chest, the shoulders are going to be intriguing, the head is going to have a cool design, and he's just got all these cool different play possibilities, that when I go to my ledger to do all the calculations, I'm going to say ultimately that there's no way I'd pass on recommending this kit. It is recommended for one simple word, and I'm just going to say that it's fun. It's fun to take a look at all the colors in the plates. It's fun to put it all together. It's fun to see him just loaded for bear there with all those big guns and all the play variations, shooting the funnels off there and the shield, whatever tricks that you can get it into place. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And the transformation for me, if you overlook the parts forming aspect, I really like the way that it looks. I like the way it's designed. I like the way it all fits together and hides all the yellow. And it's just basically going to bring a very cool idea to life, although the execution is going to be far from perfect, as you could probably take from the first 5 minutes or so of this video. But for me, it's a lot of fun, and in terms of looks, this is something, it doesn't capture the power of the anime because it wasn't animated, but when we're talking MSVs, there's MSVs and there's MSVs, and we're talking about ones that appear in a one-page magazine scan, and you never see him again. He's going to be in the game, he's got his own manga and Gundam Ace, so he's definitely going to have a lot more followers than a lot of other people, or than something that's just going to appear as a sketch. And another thing that every once in a while is fun to look at, I was out shopping with a friend who wanted to send a Gundam home to his family, and he's looking with zero experience at Yamada Denki, looking at the shelves, and he ended up choosing the Gundam 7th, simply because he doesn't care about what game it's from or what series it's from. It just looked like fun, and I think it was for his nephew to build. And it's the same thing that I think this is going to strike you as. If you take a look at this, you know nothing about the series in terms of the colors, in terms of the design, in terms of the weapons, and a cool looking transformation. Throw all of that in together, and I think it's going to be fun for novice builders and for the people that really want to delve in. Go pick up the newest issue of Gundam Ace and see what's up under the sky. Moving on to the always fun future speculation. Well, first of all, I gotta say that putting this kit together makes me a lot more intrigued to check out the Delta Plus, something that I sort of skipped over right away, of course, for master grades, but it's the kind of thing where a master grade of the Delta Plus and even an HGUC might be fun to have that display with the Delta Gundam, with the Delta Kai, and the Delta Plus in there in the whole series, and why not throw in a Hyakushiki to boot, and maybe a High Nu or two. But the big question is going to be about the master grade, because as you saw with the plates here, you're going to be getting half the plates belong to the Delta Plus, so you have to wonder if anybody's read the plates, if you want to put it that way, for the actual Delta Plus MG. What are the odds of a Delta Kai coming out of that? Because for me, when I see that massive sticker sheet, which is the biggest turnoff for this kit, you've just got to wonder how much of that would be actually pulled off in plastic. Because for me, it would be an instant buy, because even though it's not in the tricolors, in terms of a manga lead, he definitely comes across as being very intriguing, up there with the Red Frame Astray and the various kits from OOF. Anyway, why don't you let me know what you think about its chances of it actually coming out? The HGUC sales will be telling, and anyway, it would be nice to have this one in Master Grade, that one in Master Grade, and this one, and you get the idea. All of them, of course, would be fun. Anyway, everybody, as always, thanks for watching, and stick around for lots more news, reviews, and everything else you can use. See ya. Kai. To have a master grade set of all of the Funnel Brothers, all of them with actual mechanisms to keep them up in the air and looking cool.